So you already know that there are spoilers in here, so if you haven't played Metro Exodus yet, go watch some of my Dead Space videos instead. Those are pretty cool, I hear. So here we go in 3, 2, 1, spoilers. As our team escapes the burnt out husk of Moscow after hijacking the Aurora, he is more than a little familiar with the dangers that lurk just beyond view posed by the mutants. Whether they be in air, on the ground, or in the water, it seems that every creature has been touched and altered by the bioweapon and radiation dropped on Russia with its war. In fact, the world seems to have very few clean locations left, but as we all know, radiation and bioagents are contaminants, and as with all contaminants, it has a propensity to end up in tributaries, rivers, and ultimately oceans. One river in particular lurks a beastly creature that is, believe it or not too far off from its naturally occurring form. It hunts the rivers, eating crustacean mutants occasionally that thrive between the banks. Any humanimal that should wander too close is also fair game, and humans whose boats are small enough are considered to be quite snackable as well. I think we all know what we came here for, so let's go ahead and discuss the lore and morphology of the Tsar fish and attempt to determine firstly how strange, or maybe not strange it is, and secondly where it actually came from. Your first meeting with the Tsar fish is, as you might guess, pretty unpleasant. After dealing with the cultists serving up sweet justice in the form of broken noses and contusions, you heroically board your dinghy to get back to the mainland, and back to the Aurora. Setting off on the river, you see something just beneath the surface. Instantly, this massive creature breaches the surface and begins to attack. Basically, it just attempts to swallow you whole. You just barely escape and almost run on water back to shore. Standing on shore, I'm sure you were like me wondering, was that a freaking shark? Well, good news, it wasn't a shark. Sharks typically do not travel up the Volga River to this extent. But before divulging what it probably is, let's take a look at some context clues around the area to see why this thing is out here. This area appears to for sure be some sort of weapons storage or weapons factory, which considering all the trains in the area would make sense as it would be shipped out and received. One location was more of a storage facility as mentioned previously, and when Anna fell through the hole in the ground in the area, our team descends in to find her. Considering the medicine she needs is actively or was actively made in Novosibirsk, this was more than just your average town. With this bunker storing unknown agents underground, it's fairly clear that this could leach out into the surrounding soil, making its way into groundwater and then into the river. On top of this storage area, there is another location not too far away that seems to be a much less formal storage facility. In here, barrels sit in the open water running into the river directly. This is also biohazardous waste. In this area, many humanimals have made it their home, possibly leading to their own mutations. So the moral of the story is anything in the area would quite clearly be heavily influenced by whatever Russian scientists at the time were working on. Then there is the last and final facility located in the middle of the map, which raises some interesting concerns. This area was quite clearly being used as a lab to test the biomaterial kept in the other storage facilities, or perhaps that was used up material and then it was just left there. Anyhow, throughout the structure or terminal as it's referred to, scientific data was being tracked and quantified about certain species being experimented on. As to what purpose it served is unknown, but the after effects could have produced the czarfish we know of. With all these contaminants in the area, this posed quite an issue for any creature living there in the past. Not only was radiation a major contender for eliminating life, but the bioagent used during the attacks could have easily blanketed the area. On top of this, you had the contaminants in the area, which also leads to its own set of issues. This being said, I believe that we will have to correct one of my previous hypotheses. I no longer believe that the bombs dropped yielded the creatures in the area. Seeing how far out this is and how the air was relatively clean, it seems to me that the biological agent from the weapons would not have made it out this far. As such, it was likely a local homegrown contaminant that led to these creatures we see wandering around. This does hold water as well because this location is pretty far up the Volga River. With this mutagenic concoction leaking into the river, this could easily affect creatures downstream, which we still see along the Volga River and Caspian Sea, that it has humanimals and other mutants. I actually connected this in my mind when I was writing the script, and it was pretty cool. So consider this the running theory I have now as to why we find creatures out here that are mutated, even though the landscape does not look like it was bombed into oblivion. It's clear, just like the Americans, the Russians were working on their own mutagenic bioagent capable of turning the natural occurring animals and people into monsters. This is unknown though if they ever got theirs out the door before the Americans attacked, but it is also certain this has affected the local creatures in this town. So let's get to the czarfish, because I think we really really understand the thing's reason for being at this point. First, the starfish is an absolute behemoth of a fish. Its size is unknown currently, but judging by the quick shots we can see of it, I would put it easily at a range of about 30 to 40 feet comfortably. For the rest of the planet using non-freedom units, this is about 9.1 to 12.2 meters from about snout to tail. The weight of this creature is a little bit tricky, unfortunately, but seeing as the fish known as the beluga sturgeon was caught in 1922 that weighed roughly 3,500 pounds or 1,570 kilograms, this creature appears much larger and thicker than the sturgeon caught. I would say that the starfish would quite literally be upwards of 7,000 to 10,000 pounds of just pure instinct-driven aquatic nightmare. This works out to be about 3,175 to 4,535 kilograms. Seems ridiculously high, right? But let's not forget that water allows creatures to grow much larger so they don't have to support their own weight like the other animals do on terra firma. The fish shows a remarkable intelligence as well. In what can be considered the aquatic lab area, I suppose, it skillfully makes its way around the lab, eating humanimals when it can and hunting Artyom as he makes his way through. The creature will also deliberately slam into the concrete pillars in an attempt to rattle the platform Artyom is on, and if you drop in, you're fish food. On top of this, it also seems quasi-domesticated as well. The cultists respect and revere the fish, and as such, they will feed it to appease it. This seems to work, as when the bell is rung, the fish will make its way to the feeding platform where corpses are hung up and dropped in for it to snack on. There are many strange mutations on the fish, but honestly, I think the best way to figure out how these arose is to take a look at where the fish comes from. And because of the clues in game, we are about to get some seriously conflicting stories, but I believe the problem can be solved by taking a look at the fish's actual biology. So let's ask ourselves, what in God's name is this abomination? 3 different ideas exist, but one in particular seems to make the most sense to me. When you are in the science terminal, you happen upon a data recording referencing that the fish experimented on was a catfish. Pretty alluring summation, isn't it? Well, I kind of disagree with that being the case. Catfish are known to live for quite a long time, and the whiskers, or the actual name barbel, which are on the face, while the starfish does have these, it has clearly lived for a long time also, but this does not mean that they are the same, mainly because there are other parts of this starfish that make me believe that this is not actually a catfish that we are looking at. It seems to me that the scientists were just testing on the catfish, which means they were probably using just the local bioweapons to see what the side effects were. The mutagenic and growth properties are well documented, and seeing as the material is leaking out into the Volga River, the naturally occurring creatures of this area could just as easily be affected. Secondly, catfish need warm water to survive. The Volga River is very cold, and considering its location, even colder than normal. Anything in this area would almost need an evolutionary path allowing them to survive, and that evolutionary path needs to have stemmed probably from the Volga River or very cold waters. It is possible that the mutagen induced a quick evolutionary switch up in the catfish when it first escaped to the river, but I severely doubt its ability to survive these frigid waters for very long. So, what else does that leave? Well, there is a naturally occurring creature in the Volga River right now that does fit the bill pretty well, a beluga sturgeon. As beluga sturgeons can reach massive proportions as mentioned previously, they're also extremely long-lived. They can lead a life up to about 150 years at their maximum, and they never stop growing as they live. And for anybody that wants to know, that is called indeterminate growth. This can yield creatures that become absolute behemoths. They possess all the necessary barbels, and they have a snout-like mouth with many teeth. This creature is just about a perfect fit for the starfish, but alas, it is almost perfect. There are some major issues with the starfish versus the sturgeon. I believe the starfish is actually a mammal rather than a fish, ironically given the name. The throat houses a very important structure that is not found in fish: vocal cords. Vocal cords might seem like they're not that big of a deal, and you might be asking yourself, well, couldn't they have mutated? Not likely, and here's why. The bioagent doesn't evolve creatures to make communication structures. Instead, it seems to devolve what's already there. The body changes in ways that allows it to survive, but any form of socializing seems to almost be diminished to a great deal. Take the librarians and humans. Librarians technically do have the ability to speak on occasion, but is very broken and animalistic. A fish would not just randomly mutate such finely tuned structures as vocal cords. The starfish still uses the vocal cords it does have to actually make whale-like calls. This is paramount to determining what this creature actually is. Another situation that points to this creature not being a beluga sturgeon is its hunting tactics. Most fish are not known for their ability to run up on land and hunt. The lungfish, being kind kind of an exception as it breathes air, but as far as we know, this is not in the Volga River. The beluga sturgeon is actually a bottom feeder and will rely mostly on crustaceans on the bottom, and has not really been known to swim up on shore. But you know who does? Orcas. Orcas will hunt seals by grabbing them by running toward, or I guess swimming towards shore, and borderline beaching themselves. They will grab the seal and then use their powerful limbs to essentially crawl back to the water. This is exactly what the starfish can do. Its front limbs have almost developed into pseudo legs, allowing it to crawl back to the water after a successful beaching. It would seem to me also that mentioned previously the starfish would breathe air like you or I, and judging by its behavior, this creature can not only come on land to grab prey, but they also seem to stick close to the surface as well. Choosing to more than likely breathe this way, they hunt the surrounding area in the water at the surface. Now I am split. It seems like the sturgeon would be a surefire animal, but I believe this creature really is an orca, and to continue on as to why I think this, orcas have been known to live in freezing temperatures all the way up to warm water. Not only that, but orcas are known to travel up rivers as well. While this is considered rare, the fact that it is possible for them to exist in freshwater environments for a period of weeks definitely lends some credence to this hypothesis. Now, I will concede to the point that it would be bizarre to see this creature living here for an extended period of time, as presumably it has, but again, the mutagenic compound in this area seems to induce rapid changes to the body of any creature, and as such, this may have allowed the orca to adapt quickly enough to survive the freshwater environment. Seeing how open the area is, however, it could be entirely possible that the water was salty enough from runoff to allow the survival of these creatures too. The starfish is referenced heavily in game as a catfish, and I understand it is entirely possible as well, but based upon the morphological structures of this creature, I see many issues with this hypothesis. Like I said, mainly the vocal cords, but also the reference of the reptilian features located on the starfish. Seeing as a catfish are not really naturally reptilian in shape or traits, it would be pretty bizarre to see this on a fish. These eye slits, elongated mouths, and skin color all seem to point to reptile. However, these traits could just be as easily existing on an orca if that was the case, and this would also explain why the creature has the structures internally that it does as well, and also the ability to almost speak the whale language. The mouth of an orca, while rounded now, could probably mutate to be longer. The slit eyes are predominantly reptilian, but this could be an adaptation of forced mutation in the orca, and the skin, well, it's not like any other creature exactly has the same skin they started off with. My final point as to why this thing is not a catfish is the teeth. Catfish really don't have teeth. Some are known to have like a sucker mouth, which will allow them to attach onto prey, but concerning rows of teeth, this is not prevalent at all. Even with mutation, the mouth would be hard pressed to form these perfect rows of teeth, but you know who does have teeth? Your boy Free Willy. Orcas have many razor sharp teeth used for grabbing prey and tearing, much like we see on the starfish. Ultimately though, this is what I believe. I think that the starfish is actually a Tsar mammal who has mutated from an orca. The chemicals got out quite easily into the surrounding rivers and lakes, which may have mutated the whale as it made its way inland, or even perhaps it could have already been inside of the sign structure and then it escaped. This would explain its teeth, vocal cords, size, and general hunting abilities. Fish just do not share these traits with whales, and as such, the Tsar mammal is neither catfish nor sturgeon. But hey, that's just my opinion on it. What do you think the starfish is? I'd like to hear what you think down in the comments. If you think I'm just an absolute mad lad flying in the face of the game's heavy references, let me know. Think I'm onto something? Show some support, because I'm pretty sure I will get some re-comments on this one. Anyhow, did you know you have a chance to get your hand on some merch now? Check it out down in the description. I put a link down there. I will also drop my Twitter, Discord, and Patreon links as well, and if you'd like to check out any of those, you know where they are. And of course, I'd like to thank my patrons. First up, our astronauts. I want to give a seriously huge shout out for their assistance. We have Joseph Givens, and next up, It's Not a Spoon, and last but not least, it's Laffy No Skill. Thank you guys for your stellar support. Our scientists are A. Laurentis, and then we've got your aptly named Artem Chornage. Thanks guys. Next up, our lone resident is Punish Me. Our three geneticists are Allison Despero, Andrew Lawson, and Divine Whisper. Hanging out with their masters in biology, we have Adam Hartswick, Cameron Smith, Cough Syrup, Edgy McGee, Gage Morrill, Mr. Poyfish, Stutz, The Wren of Lies, and the Otterman. And lastly, the units with their bachelors in morphological sciences are Add to the List, Akigao Comics, Alex the Gun Guy, Anthony Charles West, Anthony Wolf, Captain Gasmask, Dark Gear, Dragon of Death, Dustin Ellis, Eric Scott Gillies, Fruit Eater, Icarus, Jake Russell, Kyle McHenry, Marcus Ball, Molten Tarts, Professor Binnips, Russell McBride, Sir Deadlock, The Original Fat, and Trixie Lulamoon. Thank you everyone for your help. It goes to a good cause as I go to EMT school. The schedule is super sporadic, which will make it impossible to stay a scientist, so donations like this are keeping the lights on while I learn how to medically stave off death. So finals should be just about over, but for those still in it, keep pushing, the end is in sight. Anyhow, thank you guys for watching. I hope everyone enjoyed, and I will see y'all in the next one.